The global fight against HIV/AIDS has suffered a major blow. The United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, has abruptly terminated its funding for numerous HIV/AIDS projects in South Africa. This unexpected move has sent shockwaves through the healthcare community, leaving many organizations scrambling to cope. Organizations received official termination letters on February 26 and 27, 2025. These letters instructed them to immediately cease all project activities. This included terminating subawards and contracts. Additionally, organizations were ordered to avoid incurring any further costs. The termination of these vital projects is deeply concerning. South Africa has been a focal point in the global battle against HIV/AIDS. For years, USAID's support has been instrumental in providing care and prevention services. The sudden withdrawal of this support has created a state of emergency in the fight against the epidemic. The impact of this decision is widespread. Organizations working on a range of critical services are affected. This includes HIV testing and treatment programs. It also extends to prevention initiatives and support services for vulnerable populations. The Inova Health Institute, a leading recipient of PEPFAR funding, has lost all its support. APACE projects, encompassing major nonprofits like the Wits Reproductive Health Institute, Broadreach Healthcare, and Right to Care, are also grappling with the sudden funding loss. This abrupt shutdown has left healthcare providers in a state of disbelief and despair. The future of countless individuals receiving life-saving treatment hangs in the balance. It also threatens to undo years of progress made in the fight against HIV/AIDS in South Africa. The termination letters from USAID offer little clarity on the specific reasons behind the funding cuts. They cite a directive from Acting USAID Administrator and Secretary of State Marco Rubio and PTDO Deputy Administrator Peter W. Morocco. The letters state that the HIV/AIDS projects are not aligned with agency priorities. Further, they argue that continuing these projects is not in the national interest. This justification has been met with widespread criticism and skepticism. Critics argue that the Trump administration has a history of undermining global health initiatives. They point to the administration's January 24, 2025 decision to freeze funding for all U.S.-funded aid projects globally as evidence. Although a limited waiver was announced on February 1, 2025, it provided little relief. USAID-funded projects in South Africa were asked to apply for 90-day limited waivers, excluding HIV prevention activities. However, no responses were received before the termination letters arrived. The lack of transparency and clear justification for the funding cuts has fueled speculation. Some speculate that the decision is driven by ideological motives, rather than genuine concerns about national interest. Others believe it is a cost-cutting measure, reflecting the administration's disregard for foreign aid. Whatever the reason, the impact on the ground in South Africa is undeniable and devastating. The abrupt nature of the shutdown, coupled with the vague explanations, has only amplified the sense of uncertainty and fear among those affected. Many are left wondering about the true motivations behind this decision and its potential long-term consequences for global health. The immediate impact of USAID's funding cuts is being felt across South Africa's healthcare system. Organizations are being forced to scale back or completely shut down vital services. This has created a ripple effect, leaving vulnerable populations at increased risk. One of the most immediate and concerning consequences is the disruption of HIV testing and treatment programs. For many South Africans, these USAID-funded projects were their only source of life-saving antiretroviral therapy, or ART. Without access to these medications, their health is at serious risk. The disruption to treatment also has the potential to fuel drug resistance, further complicating the fight against HIV/AIDS. Beyond treatment, the funding cuts also threaten to undermine HIV prevention efforts. Programs aimed at educating communities, promoting safe sex practices, and providing access to condoms are facing closure. This could lead to a surge in new HIV infections, particularly among young people and other high-risk groups. The loss of these programs will have long-lasting repercussions, eroding the progress made in curbing the epidemic. The shutdown also has dire economic consequences. Many healthcare workers, particularly community health workers and data capturers, are facing job losses. These individuals played a crucial role in the fight against HIV/AIDS, providing essential services at the grassroots level. Their absence will create a significant void in the healthcare system. Adding to the crisis is the South African government's response, or rather, the lack thereof. Health experts and activists have criticized the government for its silence and inaction in the face of this crisis. Despite the urgency of the situation, there has been no clear communication or leadership from the National Health Department. The government's failure to articulate a plan to mitigate the impact of the funding cuts is deeply concerning. It raises questions about their commitment to tackling the HIV/AIDS epidemic and their responsibility to the citizens most affected by this decision. The lack of a coordinated response from the South African government leaves the future uncertain. While some organizations are desperately seeking alternative funding sources, others are left with no choice but to shut down their programs entirely. The consequences of this funding crisis will be felt for years to come, jeopardizing the health and well-being of millions. The international community must hold the Trump administration accountable for this reckless decision. Furthermore, it is crucial to pressure the South African government to step up and take responsibility for the health of its citizens. The fight against HIV/AIDS demands global solidarity and decisive action,